In this month, when our theme is mysticism, our whole soul living theme, last week we did a sort of an introduction to mysticism. We talked about mysticism in a very general way. What mysticism is, how mysticism is present in all traditions and cultures, how mysticism is rooted deeply in a kind of a universal human experience. We noted how mystics from all times and traditions are people who believe or sense or experience that there are other realities beyond the merely physical one. Maybe spiritual realities that we can touch or approach with what we might call our inner senses, our intuition, our feelings, our innate knowing, or however we might articulate that maybe more transcendent, more mysterious aspect of our existence. So last week was a sort of an introduction that I want to take a little bit further this morning. And though I think I was pretty clear about this, it can't be emphasized enough that mysticism is not a belief system. Right? There's no mystic doctrine. There's no mystic dogma. We can talk about mysticism. In fact, we can discuss mysticism intellectually as long as we understand that the very act of doing so, the very act of approaching mysticism intellectually, has already started us down the road to less rather than greater understanding. You can't get at mysticism that way. That's why mysticism teaches in stories and metaphors and allegories. So, here's one. One day a great king was reading a book while an old man was making wheels nearby. The old wheelmaker noticed that the book seemed to capture the king's entire attention, so diligently was he studying it, and he grew curious about this and finally worked up the nerve to approach this powerful king and say, "Excuse me, Your Majesty, forgive me for intruding, but what is this book you are reading so intensely?" "Oh, this is no ordinary book," said the king, holding it up with great respect. "It was written by a wise and holy sage." The wheelmaker asked, "Is the sage still alive, Your Majesty?" "No," the king shook his head. "That sage passed away many, many years ago." "Oh, I see," said the old man. And then before he could think better of it, he added, "Well, in that case, what you are so consumed with reading is nothing more than the leftovers of a dead man." Well, the king found this incredibly insulting. "How dare you?" he said angrily. "You are nothing but a lowly craftsman. Is it your place to comment on what I wish to read? Explain yourself, and I might let you live." "Oh, I'm so sorry," said the old man, the wheelmaker. "Your Majesty, it is exactly as you say. I am nothing but a humble craftsperson. I know nothing but the art of making wheels. Please allow me to explain myself with this knowledge that I have. You see, Your Majesty, in my line of work, the center of the wheel is of supreme importance. It must fit the axle exactly right. If I make the hole too big, the wheel will slip off and become useless. And if it is only even slightly too big, then the wheel will seem to stay on. But after a short while of actual use, it will wear out quickly and loosen and fall off. On the other hand, it's possible to make the hole a little too small. And if I do that, well, then when I force the axle onto it, I could split the wheel, and that would waste hours and hours' effort. And even if it's only just ever so slightly too small, then it may appear to be a good fit. But after a short while of actual usage, the wheel will crack and break apart, possibly causing damage to the carriage or the people inside. Therefore, the secret of my trade is to know just the right way to make the hole in the center of the wheel. And this requires a feeling in my hand and in my eye that only has come to me from years of experience of making wheels. It's a feeling I have learned to trust, for it is never wrong. The other secret of my trade has to do with the roundness of the wheel. If I chisel away at the wheel too quickly, I can finish the job in a short period of time, but the wheel won't be perfectly round. Even though it may look quite acceptable on casual inspection, in actual usage it will cause excessive shaking of the carriage, and the wheel will damage itself beyond repair in a matter of days. On the other hand, I could carve the wheel very slowly and very carefully, and this would guarantee a perfectly round wheel, but it would take so long that Your Majesty would have to wait many years before we could assemble the fleet of carriages you have ordered. So in order to create the best wheels in the most timely way, I must chisel at just the right speed. Not too fast, not too slow. And this also is guided by a feeling in my hands and in my eyes, which again can only be acquired through many years of experience, many, many pieces of wood, many. With this feeling, then, I can be perfectly composed and perfectly at peace and perfectly unhurried as I make my wheels and still complete the project on time. The old wheelmaker now had the king's complete attention. So you see, Your Majesty, I can teach the mechanics of wheelmaking to anyone. It's quite easy, actually, to create something that looks like a wheel. But it's very difficult to make wheels that are durable and safe and provide a smooth ride. All of this I can easily explain to you, but what I cannot give to you is the feeling in my hands and in my eyes that I have earned through many years of making wheels. So, Your Majesty, the ancient sages possessed the feelings and the knowledge that were at the heart of their wisdom and holiness. But this they earned over a lifetime of constant effort. And just as it is impossible for me to pass my experience on to another, it is equally impossible for them to transmit the depth of their wisdom and holiness to you. Their feelings, their knowledge died when they did. And all that is left behind is their words. And that is why, Your Majesty, I said that you were doing nothing more than wallowing in the leftovers of a dead man. The king was uncharacteristically speechless and slowly put the book down. So mystics understand that just about everything that is truly worthwhile learning must be learned in this way. And this is especially true of our religious and our spiritual lives. Mystics understand this kind of learning is somehow mysteriously, wonderfully, sometimes painfully bound up with our capacity for love. Mystics understand that Holy Scripture and wisdom literature can say to us, go this way, or watch out for those potholes, or don't go too fast, or beware of pride. But they understand that teaching stories and allegories can be powerful tools of communication. But we don't really understand the journey until we've been on it for a while. So in this somewhat roundabout way, I'm suggesting that at least in this sense, Unitarian Universalism is a mystic tradition. That is, we've evolved over the last 400 years to be suspicious of doctrines and dogmas. That doesn't get us where we want to go. We covenant to live together in deep respect for the lived experience that each of us carries from our accumulated life and time. We understand that while the words of Scripture and the trail left behind by wisdom literature is incredibly valuable, it's not a substitute for the deeper knowledge each of us gains through paying attention to our own years of living and loving, working and striving, seeking and hiding, the experience of holding on, the necessity of letting go. You can't put the depth of your lived experience in a book. Reverend Patrick O'Neill said it this way: the truth is that no church can give your life value and meaning and faith. No church can give your life value and meaning and faith. The most a church can do, the most any church can do, is issue the invitation to take your life seriously and give yourself permission to think religiously about where your life is now and where you want it to be heading. You can ask any number of deep philosophical and theological questions about doctrine and dogma and creedal formation if those are important to you. You can spend as much time as you care distinguishing the fine points of theological difference that divide Christian from humanist, Unitarian Universalist from Catholic, from Episcopalian, from Methodist, from Jew, from Hindu, from Muslim. But as long as you focus on what divides these great traditions, you will miss what it is that makes all of them at their best pathways of the sacred. Truthfully, there's a simpler place to start. If you want to get to the center of your life, the root question of your personal theology is, what do you love? At this moment in your life. From where you rest this morning on your life's journey, in the midst of your life's struggles, given what you know now and what you currently feel about the way your life is unfolding and changing and flowing or lurching along lately, what do you love? If you can tell me that, you will have identified the center of your theology and your belief system. So here's where I'm going with all this. I take it as a given, as part of the human condition, that we, merely human beings in this very large and mysterious universe, are seekers of love and connection. So even though it might look or feel a little different in every individual human soul, my own experience perfectly accords with wisdom literature. We are wired for love. We're hungry and thirsty for love. We're driven by love, sometimes literally and spiritually dying for love. Here's a quote that I don't think was intended as a mystic quote, but it's a perfect mystic quote from Jacob Needleman. We think we can play with love, but we are mistaken. Love plays with us. It is far more powerful than we are, and if at first we seem to be fitting love into our lives, this is only love's way of smiling at us as we are drawn under its thrall. Lightly, ecstatically, we cross the bridge that love lays down for us, and soon enough, we're fighting for our lives. And it's not about belief. In this church, in this tradition, there's no litmus test of what you should believe or what you'd better believe or what you might go to hell if you don't believe. Because around here we understand love is beyond beliefs. Sometimes in the interfaith groups where I spend a lot of time, I get questioned about this, especially by some of my colleagues in more traditional or more conservative Christian churches, and increasingly as our in-faith gatherings become populated by Muslims and others, I get this question from them as well. Some version of this question, they say, so let me get this straight. You got a church where you've got atheists and agnostics and Christians and pagans and Buddhists and Jews. So, like in your church, how does somebody know if they're on the right path? How do you lead your people closer to God? What do you talk about on Sunday morning? And I love it when I get that question because the answer is so simple. Because around here, we say that the only meaningful measure of a religious life, the only truly honest way to tell if your spirituality is leading you on or holding you back, is how much love and how much justice is being nurtured or created in your heart. How much love and justice are you leaving behind you as you go, as you travel through life? That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. That is, nothing more complicated and nothing less ruthlessly demanding. Reverend Marlon Lavanhar says the same thing, only he uses slightly different language. He says, your spirituality, whatever it might be, however you define it, however you might live it out, should help you increase your capacity for the 3 C's of compassion, connection, and courage. But the words, right, love and justice, connection, compassion, courage, like these are just the signs on the side of the road. Whatever language you use, if what you're doing religiously, spiritually, is moving you or leading you in those directions, you're getting it right. And if whatever you're doing is moving you away from or just holding you even with or holding you at bay for moving in those directions, it's time to look a little deeper. Because something probably needs to change. How do you know? Well, I can't answer that exactly for you. For me, this week, it was that little realization that went off as I was writing these words, and I thought, oh, I'm writing to myself, aren't I? Yeah, okay. Here's something I know. Something else I know from my own lived experience. I remember how packed this sanctuary was on the Sunday after 9/11. People on the floor, lining the back walls. The doors were open. We had to put chairs out in the hallway. I remember, some of you will find this amusing, some of you not so much, but I remember how packed this sanctuary was in 2004 on the Sunday after George Bush was reelected. I had people, I'm not kidding, I had people sobbing in my office, having a crisis of faith, not sure they still believed people were basically good. I remember how many people were here the Sunday after the shootings in Aurora. I remember all the interfaith events and services I've attended or participated in for immigrant rights, for marriage equality, for peace in the Middle East, for ending the war in Iraq, for Thanksgiving, and so on and so on. I remember all the times I have seen people from many different faiths and many different beliefs come together, march together, hold hands and sing together, bow their heads and pray together. And I know there is a love beyond belief. There's a love beyond our differences, beyond the colors of our skin, beyond whether we are rich or poor, beyond whether we are Republicans or Democrats, beyond whether we are Israelis or Palestinians. I know there is a love beyond comprehension. And I love that we strive for this every single day at First Unitarian Denver. Every single day.